Hey, it's 1.4 step 1 video, creating a line of inquiry. Our objective as students will be able to create a line of inquiry to investigate about the play Medea. What is the higher level essay is the first question. Well, first of all, it's worth 20% of your IB score. And so that's this little slice right there. It's a chunk of change. It explores a line of inquiry, and that's what this video is going to talk all about. It makes an argument, this essay, after you have explored the line of inquiry about the topic and drawing an interpretive conclusion of some kind. And so it supports these arguments with examples with specific details from the text, including short direct quotes that are integrated into your own sentences. It analyzes authorial choices. So those are things like diction, imagery, tone, structure, and I'll list a bunch in this video that are specific to the play Medea. The higher level essay for IB, when you finally turn it in January, needs to be 1,200 to 1,500 words. But for this first try, this is kind of a prototype of the higher level essay, I want you to shoot for about 750 words. That's going to be a minimum, so 750 or more. Number 2, what is the inquiry process? That is what IB wants us to use for the higher level essay. And that's why this term line of inquiry is used. So the inquiry process is really where you start with a question. You start with asking questions, and that is your line of inquiry that you're going to make for this lesson. Then you move on to gathering and organizing information. And so this will be more like what you do in 1.5, and you'll interpret and analyze information as well in 1.5, and then you'll start actually making you'll evaluate that information by making a thesis statement and an outline and start, making your points in that essay where you communicate your findings. And so that's the idea of an inquiry process. And it's this cycle too, where we are constantly doing this. We're asking questions, gathering information, interpreting, evaluating, communicating, and then looking for more questions that we might have. And so we'll tackle this again when we come back to the higher level essay after you've written 2 prototypes, one on Medea and one on the things they carried, which we'll be reading for the next unit. What components are needed for a good line of inquiry? You need a question word or multiple question words. You need the author's name. You need the name of the text. In this case, it would be underlined or italicized because it's a major work. You need the name of the genre, the type of the form that you are analyzing. You need some kind of a literary or linguistic aspect. This is authorial choice. There's a lot of different labels for this, but this is basically how the piece works to create meaning. You need a rich idea, something about theme or topic that is really interesting in and of itself. You also need some precise context. Okay, so here are those 7 items again. And I'll show you a sample line of inquiry that uses them, and it's highlighted according to each component. So how and to what effect, question words, this is the author's name, Ariel Dorfman, does his characterization, there's the linguistic aspect or authorial choice, of Paulina in the play, genre, Death and the Maiden, title, illustrate the struggle for freedom, rich idea, and you can see this is kind of a theme, in a post-dictatorship. This is the precise context. So that's an example of a line of inquiry. Here's another one. How and to what effect does Jesmyn Ward utilize magic realism and the motif of singing in the novel Sing, Unburied, Sing to illustrate the generational trauma felt by contemporary African American communities? All right, so you have 2 samples and a list of 7 components that make up a line of inquiry. Number 4 is, what are some rich ideas from Medea? That's what you guys have to write about. Well, here are some things that we talked about. We talked about Medea as a subversive text, a text that challenges societal norms. We talked about Medea as other. someone who is coming from the outside of a culture, who is not inside the culture, but is rather somebody else, somebody foreign, somebody female, somebody who's viewed as not Greek and not part of the main society. And there's also a fear of the other throughout the play that you could relate to Medea and how people feel about her. Power through voice. It is her voice that is what gets her in trouble, says Jason, and that's why she has been banished by Creon. In the end, does her voice get her what she wants? You might argue that it does as well. So she has a lot of power in her voice. It makes others afraid. It gets her what she wants. Role reversals. We see at the beginning a Medea who is sad, crying to the gods to kill her. To the end, a Medea who is a demigod in a chariot pulled by a dragon, who's gotten what she wants, revenge. The thin line between love and hate. Why does she care so much about Jason getting hurt? Well, it's because she loved him once. And the idea of that easy change from love to hate, or the closeness between the two, is an interesting one. Truth versus rhetoric. Does she always tell the truth? Does Jason always tell the truth? Is there any truth? Any real truth? Revenge and justice. Is it just to get revenge? Why do humans crave it? And in the end, what would a just outcome be? Where does the chorus stop believing in Medea's tactics to receive justice, and why? Pride of the hero or heroine. For a lot of reasons, Medea, in a lot of places in the play, Medea uses this as an argument for why she's doing what she is doing. It has to do with her pride and how she doesn't want to be laughed at or mimicked or looked down upon by others. How about literary linguistic aspects or authorial choices? Well, we've got all the conventions of Greek theater that you could write about. You could write about any one of these or multiple aspects, and you could talk about how Euripides either follows the conventions or doesn't follow them and the effect of that. You could talk about Medea's code switching. Are you familiar with this term, code switching? It's the idea of using a different register or a different way of speaking based on the person you are speaking to. Medea does this. She speaks one way to Jason, a different way to Creon, and yet a different way to Aegeus. And then she speaks a different way to Jason the second time she talks to him. So how does she use code switching to her advantage? There's a motif of storm and water imagery throughout the play you might look at. There's a motif of poison and love and passion as poison. A lot of allusions to gods and goddesses. There's a language of reciprocity where you give me something and I'll give you something else. And we see that a lot in the play. And I've got an interesting article that I'll post in Schoology on that if you're interested in that. References to oaths. I have another literary criticism article that I'll put in Schoology about that. Symbols of the crown and the robe, the gifts that she gives to the princess, work as really interesting symbols. Spatial semantics, the movement from public to private, and I've got another article in Schoology about that one. You do have to read at least one article for step 2 for this unit. And maybe there are others that you have noticed. How will this be graded? Well, it's 100 summative points, and as you know, that's 80% of your grade. The very last page of the packet has details, so I'll have you flip there now if you want to. You'll be graded on just the first 2 of the 4 criteria for the higher level essay, which are knowledge and understanding and interpretation, and as well as analysis and evaluation. And I've got more on what those are here, but they're also in the back page of your packet, and so I'm not going to read through them all right here, but this is what I'm looking for criterion A, and this is what I'm looking for criterion B. All right, now the next step is to work on brainstorming your own line of inquiry. Try step 2, which is going to ask you to read a piece of literary criticism, and then step 3, where you create your line. Good luck.